Good morning, good people. Welcome to Trace the Space, episode 2. I decided it would be customary to do a bit of a backstory type thing where I get to share a little about myself. This feels a little unnatural for me because I'm not someone who enjoys speaking about myself and about my life. But I guess before I get into the routine and into the habit of talking about other people's lives and stories, I should embrace mine. I've always shied away at the opportunity and the need to talk about myself and the things that affect me directly. I had always shift the attention to my sister or my mother for the reason that I always figured, they always had something a little more interesting about them. In a way, it's also just a form of fear of putting myself out there, the fear of just being open, I guess. So I'll start with a bit about my background, then shed light on where I'm at in life right now, and close it off with my hopes and sights for the future. I'm a city brat who grew up in the city of Johannesburg. And the places I consider home are the beautiful, clean, untouched neighborhoods of Hillbrow, Berea and Yeoville. When I think of home, distinctly that's what comes to mind. The tall, leaning tower of the Vodacom building to the Telkom Tower in Hillbrow, to the small parks in and around the city, the local city libraries. The local city libraries. Those had a big part and a huge role in raising me. One of my favorite places is the Johannesburg City Library. I feel it had a huge part in raising me and my sister, Pumla Lona Wilbon. We used to live in Newtown at one point, and we used to frequent the place almost every day. After school, on weekends, it was my mom's way of having someone look after us while she had to make an escape to spend time with friends or mostly for work. I didn't mind. It was my favorite place in the world. I just remember walking into this grand building and being in awe and being mesmerized by the smell, that woody smell of the books. There used to be this one lady who read for the kids. I think it was every weekend. She read with so much passion and enthusiasm and would ask us questions. I'd like to thank that lady. I actually don't even remember her face. I'd like to thank her for her commitment in contributing and volunteering her time to a group of inner city kids, because she touched my life in ways she won't even begin to understand. So the children's library was one place I spent a great deal of time. And so when we were 8 or 9 years old, it was no surprise that receiving library cards as our birthday gifts was the best thing to ever happen. It meant we could take books home. It meant we could feel responsible for something. And it got even better when I was able to borrow books from the older section of the library where the young adults and the adults borrowed from. I frequented that place quite a bit in high school, and the books I mainly read were non-fiction books. I've always been someone who was fond of reading biographies, and then it moved into self-help and motivation. And then non-fiction wise, I was a huge fan of Paulo Coelho, Brazilian author, who wrote the best-selling book, The Alchemist. My favorite book by Paulo would probably be The Witch of Portobello, because I resonate quite a bit with the lead character, and I'm forgetting her name. Athena, yes. I have the Joburg City Library very close to my heart. I've actually built a small home for it in my collection of memories as the place that's had one of the most significant parts in shaping my life, my perspective on life, in really helping nurture my love for design and architecture. It's one of the most stunning, most striking buildings in the city. And if I'm not mistaken, the Johannesburg City Library has over 1.5 million books, which is insane. It was built in the 1930s and has that beautiful park right up front. It used to have a waterfall that doesn't work anymore, and we used to be there. I used to feel like quite a millionaire, being in the heart of the city and living in the heart of the city and having the opportunity to live amongst these beautiful buildings and structures, very opulent, very tall, well managed at the time, and still are for the most part even today. Yes, so I'm very fond of the city. The same thing applies with places like Hillbrow and Berea, which still have some really striking buildings. I mean, the Vodacom Tower happens to be one of my favorite places to just look at the design thinking that went behind building the building, and then the workmanship and immaculate, insanely well-designed building and structure. One of the ones I'm most proud of, and it happens to be right in my backyard. I used to feel so privileged being able to go to sleep and looking out into this really massive and impressive structure. We have so many treasures in the city of Joburg, and I'm really grateful for that. Got to grow up in these places, and all of these wonderful buildings house some of the most interesting, bizarre, authentic, most sincere people I've also ever met in my life. People from all walks of life, mainly people from Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Ghana, Malawi, Mozambique, Angola. So we were just this mishmash of people from all walks of life, and there was a tribe of us that grew up together who were born and bred in the city, really, who had no real ties or connections to our parents' hometowns and even their countries. And so we became the products of the city, and we're able to share in our understandings and knowledge of our homes and borrow from each other's languages, borrow from each other's dressing and music. My mom was a big collector of music from all over the continent, all over the world. Her musical taste shifted from Chinese and Korean music to West African and South American music at some point. And when you're young, you really don't have much of an appreciation for it. My appreciation for it actually grew when I started working in film, and I did some research work, and I got to reconnect with all of these small threads of my history that had been laid as a foundation for all of this now. And it's one of the things that I regret heavily, that I've never been able to thank my mother for the significant role that she's had in shaping my life and my perspective on so many things. But it is what it is. But I'd like to think that by living out her philosophies and putting into practice all the important lessons that I've taken away from her is my way of honoring her life and living her legacy. That's one part of it. The music was a huge part. My love for the theatre is still quite big, and there are certain things I haven't quite been able to do since she left, because I think you just learn to let go. And it's not necessary to hold on to certain parts of someone just to, in an effort to keep them alive. You have to let go. And letting go has been a big practice, which is where I'm at right now. I have all of these things, and it's so hard to actually zone in into key parts that have shaped my life entirely. But today, based on all the wonderful experiences I've had and all the wonderful places and people I've been exposed to, I think I have one of the most colorful and diverse perspectives and wishes for my life. I'm so content with where I'm at. I'm a practicing minimalist and have been for over 10 years now. My mother's death was actually one of the biggest motivations for that. It didn't happen in a very happy-go-lucky way. It was painful, it was dark, depression, deep sadness. So I'm happy to say I'm in a much better place today than I was a few years ago. My life is blessed with the most remarkable people. There's just no simplifying just how grateful I am for everyone in my life. I teach English for a living, and I've quit my jobs twice to be able to practice doing this thing of freelancing and walking away from working permanently for anyone. It's been a challenge, but it's been a great one, and for the most part I'm very happy, and I look forward to seeing what the next few years of my life carry for me. There's lots to do and lots to see, and sometimes the picking and the choosing can be hard. But I have asked myself what my one thing will be. And this is a question I've been asking myself for the last couple of years. Without much thought and without much complication, the one that always comes down to it is that I want to become a filmmaker one day. I want to be able to tell my mom's story. I want to be able to tell other people's stories as well. That's the one thing I'm looking forward to in the future. And I guess it's just by laying the foundations properly for this that kind of paves the way to something better, something bigger, something broader. But I'm very content with where I'm at right now. I think I've been able to do some really fascinating and exciting things, and things that have pushed me and pulled me out of my way out of my comfort zone. So I'm really grateful for my life. Started out in video and photo shoots, running my mom's casting agency back in the day, even dabbling in a little bit in entrepreneurship. I've developed a cool set of skills where I know that I'll be pretty okay wherever I land, and so I'm never really worried about what's next for me. I think my skill set speaks for me. More than anything, it's just a matter of being really content, and being content but knowing that there's always room for more. I do have the capacity for more, to be more, to do more, to have more, and for as long as I'm happy and I feel fulfilled right now, I know anything else that comes along is going to be a bonus. So yes, here's to more life. Here's to more experiences. Here's to keeping and nurturing the wonderful relationships I have. Here's to meeting many more awesome people. And here's to being brave enough to say yes to the experiences that my heart desires most, and to honoring those who came before me, who made it possible for me to be here today, to be able to do everything I do. I don't take any of it for granted. Dankie ngiyabonga. All right, I'll leave it there for now. Thank you for listening and tuning in. I'll be back soon with another episode. If you like it, please subscribe it. I'll check you on the next one.